Sehr geehrte Aktionärinnen und Aktionäre,
Dear shareholders, dear shareholder representatives, and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ulrike Brutzi. I'm the chairwoman of the Supervisory Board. I'm opening this year's AGM of the Salzgitter AG, and I'm pleased to be in charge of the meeting today. I'd also like to welcome you on behalf of the Management Board and Supervisory Board. The notarization of today's AGM will be carried out by Dr. Jülich, and I would like to welcome him as well. I would also like to extend a special welcome to students of the Vocational School 1 in Gifhorn and the Otto Bennemann School in Braunschweig, whom we are invited here today as our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, although I've been a member of the Supervisory Board of the Salzgitter AG for several years, but only recently have I taken on being its chair and I'm presiding over my first AGM, so please allow me to introduce myself briefly. I studied business mathematics, and in the course of my career I have been responsible for finances, IT compliance, capital market, and am also in charge of a number of other boards. The Salzgitter AG is currently in a transformation process, and it's important to me that reliability, accountability, clear governance, and clear dialogue in the boards and with you as shareholders is held up, and I want to be involved in that. So we can continue with the formalities. First of all, let me point out that during the course of this meeting, it is forbidden to take photographs or audio recordings or videos. The cameras you can see here are only there for the streaming in the web, and the monitors and foyers are for information purposes, and also are for broadcasting a live stream that is accessible via our website. Individual shareholders will not be recorded on those systems. I am also very pleased to allow members of the press to take films, audios, and photographic recordings of the proceedings on the stage, but I would also ask members of the press not to take individual photographs of shareholders without their consent, so that their privacy is protected. Furthermore, I would like to ask you to switch off or mute your mobile phones here in the hall. The operator of the park here in Wolfsburg has told us that smoking is absolutely strictly prohibited here throughout the entire hall, and please observe this rule. Those who do wish to smoke can use the ashtrays at the entrance to the Congress Park. Please also note that if you move the presence area, you will have to present your ID to the members of the security system so that they can remove you from the presence list. When you return, you'll be re-registered. The designated meeting areas are the main hall and the foyers up to the entrance and the exit control, including the restrooms. The proceedings of the AGM are broadcast in the foyers and the restrooms via monitors and loudspeakers. Shareholders within the designated area are considered to be participating in the meeting. However, any persons who wish to speak and all votes take place in the main hall. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the agenda, let me point out that at the last AGM, the 22nd of May 2024, the following changes took place to the Supervisory Board. Mr. Heinz-Gerhard Venter stepped down from the board on the 4th of October 2025. He was followed on by Mr. Burkhard Dahmen, active with effect from October the 10th, 2025. This appointment ends at the conclusion of today's AGM, and therefore, on item 7 of today's agenda, you'll see Mr. Dahmen as being proposed as to be re-elected at the Supervisory Board as the shareholders' representative. Following Mr. Venter's departure, the Deputy Chairman of the Supervisory Board, Professor Orban, temporarily assumed the role of Chairman, and until I was elected Chairman on March 19, 2026. Mr. Konrad Ackermann stepped down from the board on March the 31st, 2026. His successor is Ms. Nicole Schwebener, who is the employee representative effective from April 20, 2026. At the conclusion of today's AGM, Mr. Bent Druven will resign from the Supervisory Board. Under item 7 of today's agenda, you are proposed to elect Dr. Klaus Kiesberg as Dr. Druven's successor to the Supervisory Board. Since neither Mr. Dahmen nor Dr. Kiesberg had the opportunity to introduce themselves, they will now do so briefly. Ms. Dahmen. Mr. Dahmen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Burkhard Dahmen. I studied in Münster and then joined a machine constructor, one of the market leaders. They have all systems required at a steelworks. Salzgitter has been part of my career throughout my 35-year career, but I have been active in all markets in the world. I've been in sales, I've been in the financial department, I've been marketing. The last 20 years I've been in the chairman of the SMS Group, and I was chairman of the executive board. We're active in the steel industry worldwide, and I have been able to visit many customers throughout the world. Also our competitors of Salzgitter, and also Salzgitter in Peine and in its various sites. I've visited them frequently, and we've had communications and exchanges. I'm looking forward to working on the Supervisory Board so that I can use my expertise to the benefit of the company, my knowledge of the steel industry, who the main players are, main the actors are. I'm looking forward to working on the board. Dr. Kiesberg, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, good morning from me too. I'm looking forward to working with you. I was born in '64, married. I've got one adult son. I studied in Münster at the same time as my friend Mr. Dahmen, and after studying I spent my entire career at ThyssenKrupp basically in various commercial roles. Since 2011 I've been head of the material services, that is steel and material services of ThyssenKrupp. From 2019, I spent 5 years as head of finance. In that role, I also came to know the Supervisory Board of Material Services of Steel Europe, and so I know the materials, I know the business, I know the aspects of the steel industry, and I'm happy to introduce my knowledge to the company here. And I'm looking forward very much to be here and enjoying my work here.
Dankeschön.
Thank you very much. The Supervisory Board thanks Messrs. Venter, Ackermann and Druven for their many years of successful work to the benefit of the company. There has been no change to the Board of Management since the last AGM. I also note that with the exception of Dr. Druvers, who can't be here today, but so all members of the Supervisory Board are here today. All members of the Management Board are present today. Ladies and gentlemen, today's AGM was convened with the publication in the Federal Gazette on April 23rd, 2026, with the notification of the full agenda and resolutions as proposed by the Supervisory Board and as applicable by the Management Board in agenda items 2 to 10. I note that the AGM has therefore been convened in due form and on time. In addition to the announcement in the Federal Gazette, the convening of the AGM was, according to the Management Board, has been communicated to the intermediaries, to shareholder associations, and other persons entitled to information in accordance with legal requirements. The notice of the AGM was sent for publication on April 23rd, 2026 to those media outlets who can be expected to disseminate the information throughout the European Union. I also note that the following documents have been made available in accordance with legal requirements following notice of the AGM and were posted on the company's website at www.salzgitterag.com/annual general meeting. They include the convening of today's general meeting, including the agenda of the management's proposals for resolution, the audited annual financial statements of Salzgitter AG, and the approved consolidated financial statements as of December 31st, 2025. The combined management report of Salzgitter AG and the group for the financial year 2025. The Supervisory Board's report, the proposal of the Management Board and the Supervisory Board for the use of the net profit, the Remuneration Report of 2025 for the Management Board and the Supervisory Board, and the reports of the Board of Management on the reasons for the exclusion of the shareholders' subscription and tender rights as under items on the agenda 8 and 9. The documents and the explanatory report I just referred to of the Management Board, in accordance with the appropriate law of the German Commercial Code, are contained in the Management Report, which is also available on the company's website at www.salzgitterag.com/annual general meeting. And they are also available here at the Congress Center at the speaker's table. The list of attendees, including shareholders and shareholder representatives, is currently being compiled. I will announce the resulting attendance before the first vote. You can view that list at the speaker's table once it has been prepared. Changes to attendance will be continuously recorded electronically and documented and added to the participant list. I also kindly request that shareholders and their representatives who wish to leave the AGM early without further representation of their voting rights, that they present their admission ticket at the exit control so that the list of attendees can be corrected accordingly. This applies during the entire course of the meeting, also after voting has taken place, until I explicitly close the meeting. Shareholders only wish to leave the meeting temporarily must re-register using their admission ticket when they re-enter. You also have the option of authorizing another general meeting participant or the company's proxies to exercise your voting rights. If you wish to authorize another participant, please refer to the section entitled Power of Attorney to Third Parties. This is available on the back of your ticket. Fill it out and sign it, please. Then go to the exit control with that person and hand the ticket over to the persons there. If you wish to authorize the company's proxies, please go to the entrance and exit control desk. There you can grant your proxy and issue instructions electronically using tablets available there. Please also note that the proxies, one of whom is here in the main hall to my left, and the other, who is available in the entrance area on the ground floor, will not accept instructions for those persons who wish to speak, for asking of questions or submitting motions. Ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off with the agenda, here are some organizational notes. In the mutual interest of conducting our AGM swiftly, all agenda items will be discussed in a general debate following the Management Board's report on the past financial year. During this general debate, all shareholders and their representatives who wish to speak may address any item on the agenda and also ask questions on all such items. After discussion, all votes on the agenda items will then take place. To ensure votes are conducted correctly, please note that it's only possible to vote here in the main hall, not in the foyer and not in any other rooms. Any person wishing to cast a vote must go to the main hall when I call for a vote. Please also note that we have if you have multiple tickets, you must register each one individually at the accreditation desk on the ground floor. Only registered tickets can be used for voting. If you wish to speak on any of the agenda items, please go to the desk marked speakers here in front of me, on my left, where you can fill in a form with your name, and then please also show your admission ticket. To allow you to prepare, I will call upon the current and the following speaker. In the interest of all shareholders and to have a speedy AGM, please keep your remarks and questions concise and stick only to the items on today's agenda. Speaking times and the right to ask questions has no current limitation. However, in consideration of all other participants, please let me ask you to limit your speeches to a maximum of 10 or 15 minutes. I reserve the right to change procedural steps during the course of the day, should that prove necessary. Let me also inform you that after the management report and the shareholders' comments, I will ensure there is a 30-minute break. Please feel free to use this time to partake of your lunch, which is available at the start of the break in the upper foyer. Afterwards, the Management Board and the Supervisory Board will be available to answer your questions. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have ever been to one of our AGMs in the past, you will know that we always take this opportunity to remember those who passed away since the last meeting before proceeding with our agenda. We intend to do that today as well. Those who have passed away dedicate themselves to our company to the best of their abilities. However, we would like to remember not only our deceased colleagues, but also those who have died in connection with Russia's war against Ukraine, in the Middle East conflict, and unfortunately other armed conflicts throughout the world. We are aware that these are a tragedy for many people. I would like to ask those present here to hold a pause for a moment of reflection. Thank you for your thoughts. We now move on to our agenda for today. First of all, let me present agenda items 1 through 10. 1. Presentation of the audited annual financial statements of Salzgitter AG and the approved consolidated financial statements as of December 31st, 2025, together with the combined management report and the report of the Supervisory Board. 2. Decision on the use of the net profit. 3. Resolution on the discharge of the members of the Management Board. 4. Resolution on the discharge of members of the Supervisory Board. 5. Resolution on the appointment of the auditor of the statutory financial statements and the group auditor, as well as the auditor of the sustainability report for financial year 2026. 6. Decision on the approval of the remuneration report. 7. By-election of supervisory board members. Point 8. Resolution on the authorization to acquire and use own shares pursuant to Section 71 of the German Stock Corporation Act and on the exclusion of the subscription and tender rights. 9. Resolution on the authorization to use derivatives in connection with the acquisition of own shares pursuant to Section 71 of the German Stock Corporation Act and on the exclusion of the subscription and tender rights. 10. Resolution on authorizing the management report with the approval of the Supervisory Board to provide for the holding of a virtual AGM and corresponding amendments to the Articles of Association. The invitation includes the proposed resolutions of the Management Board and the Supervisory Board for each agenda item. The full text of the invitation and the proposed resolutions is also available for inspection at the speakers' table. Before the Management Board report, let me briefly report on the work of the Supervisory Board during the 2025 financial year. The Supervisory Board met 5 times during the past fiscal year. At its 4 regular meetings, it discussed the company's performance and overall situation, as well as significant business transactions and relevant changes. Between meetings, the Supervisory Board also kept itself continuously informed about developments in the individual business units. We also examined any deviations from the plan as presented at the beginning of the year. The following three topics were the main focus of the Supervisory Board's work in 2025. Throughout the entire fiscal year, the future-oriented topic of low CO2 steel production in the Salzgitter program was of paramount importance. As you know, steel production has always involved smelting iron ore using coal as a reducing agent and energy source, which results in considerable carbon dioxide emissions. For several years now, the European Union has required quantity-based emission allowances for carbon dioxide emissions, a portion of which must be purchased. This is not only associated with considerable additional costs, but we also want to contribute as much as possible to achieving the goal of a significant reduction in national and global CO2 emissions. This will require the use of entirely new process technologies in steel production. Over the medium term, this will involve substantial investment. Therefore, the Supervisory Board addressed the Salzgitter program intensively at every one of its regular meetings. Furthermore, the Supervisory Board closely supported the Management Board in the implementation of the P28 efficiency program. The program has been consistently pursued during the course of the year. The potential for earnings improvement resulting from these measures up to the year 28 now amount to 575 million euros. In the final quarter of 2024, Salzgitter AG was informed by shareholder GP Gunnar Papenburg AG that it was considering, together with TSR Recycling GmbH and Coke AG, of making a voluntary public takeover offer for the company's shareholders. In response to this announcement, the Supervisory Board resolves to establish a takeover committee and to appoint its own financial advisor, amongst other things, to prepare a potentially required reason statement from the Supervisory Board regarding a formal takeover offer. In April 2025, the ongoing discussions with the bidding consortium regarding a possible takeover were terminated. Further information about the activities of the Supervisory Board is available in the Supervisory Board's written report, starting page 7 of the annual report. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the Management Board report, I would like to give you some explanations regarding the Supervisory Board's proposed resolutions. Under point 2 of the agenda, it is proposed that a dividend of 20 euro cents per share is distributed for 2025 financial year. The Supervisory Board is of the opinion that this proposal represents a reasonable balance between the legitimate dividend interests of the shareholders and the company's need to retain profits. Since publication of the notice of today's convening of today's meeting, Salzgitter AG has sold a portion of its own shares and now holds only 5,410,660 own shares. This means that 54,686,340 shares are now entitled to dividends. Therefore, the profit appropriation proposal published with the notice of the meeting must be adjusted with the dividend of 20 euro cents per share entitled to dividends remains unchanged, and this reduces retained earnings by only euro 1,162,732. Point 5 of the agenda proposes that the EY Ernst Young GmbH & Co. KG is appointed as auditor of the statutory financial statements, the group financial statements and the sustainability report for 2026. This firm has been working for us since 2020. The Supervisory Board's Audit Committee has monitored the audit activities and is satisfied with the quality of the audit, so we can confidently recommend that you re-elect this firm as our statutory auditor. The appointment as auditor of the sustainability report is made as a precautionary measure in light of the draft legislation implementing an EU directive on corporate sustainability reporting, which is currently still in the legislative process and stipulates that for financial years beginning after December 31st, 2024, the auditor of the sustainability report must be appointed by the annual general meeting. Point 6 on the agenda proposes that to approve the report on the remuneration of the board and supervisory board members for financial year 2025. On the agenda proposes the election of Mr. Barman and Dr. Kiesberg as representatives of the shareholders for the Supervisory Board. Items 8 and 9 of the agenda propose authorizing the Management Board to acquire and use treasury shares and derivatives within this framework, as well as to exclude subscription and tender rights in this context. For further details of this, please refer to the notice of the Annual General Meeting. Item 10 of the agenda proposes to amend the company's Articles of Association to authorize the Management Board, with the approval of the Supervisory Board, to hold the Annual General Meeting as a virtual meeting. This authorization is limited to a period of 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I now request we will first of all see a film, and then I will request that Mr. Groebler, the CEO of Salzgitter Group, present his supplementary remarks on the 2025 management report and the consolidated management report, and to give a report on the current business to us here at the Annual General Meeting.
Yeah, with these impressions, dear shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to our AGM. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, both here in Wolfsburg and via the live stream. I'm looking forward to exchanging views with you, and I say this in what are certainly difficult times, but I mean that the multiple crises around the world and the tense economic situation that results from them. Above all, there is a lack of one thing that has helped companies succeed so far, and that is a certain degree of reliability. Reliability in how markets develop, reliability in how political action plays out, reliability in regulation. Today, everything is changing, and constantly so. Reliability has turned into uncertainty, and I acknowledge this, but I'm not complaining. As the owners of this company, you can expect us to deal with this and to take care of it. I like the word care because it says so much. To care means doing what is necessary and doing so with complete conviction, absolute focus, and the utmost dedication. Only those who care can shape the future of their company despite challenging conditions. That is exactly what we do at Salzgitter AG. It's paying off that we positioned ourselves strategically early on. You recall the three terms: circularity, partnering, and pioneering. That was in early 2022. More than 4 years later, we have already achieved a great deal because we stayed the course, even in the face of headwinds. We are the pioneers. And yes, we have an ecosystem with partners all around us that support us in this transformation, just right there in circularity. And we started this strategy early in 22, and here at this meeting we talked about it. And now, 4 years on, yes, we have achieved quite a bit because we stayed the course, even in the face of strong headwinds. And there were plenty of those. Fundamental changes simply don't happen overnight. You achieve them by being disciplined and sticking to what you have carefully considered and set out to do. Of course, with the necessary flexibility to adapt to changes in the markets and the political landscape, things that you cannot foresee. And we were able to react in a flexible way. But we take care day in and day out in both big and small ways. That is why our company, your company, is in such great shape. And when I say we're taking care of it, I mean our approximately 24,000 employees. Let me use up this time to thank all the colleagues who have contributed every single day. I want to say thank you to all of them. It makes me proud to see what we have done together. I'm often out in our production facilities, in the workshops, talking to our sales staff and our trainees, because it is important to me to hear what matters to our employees and what moves them. And because I know that success is always a shared one. It's not the three of us, it's not the leadership team, it's the entire team that we have here when it comes to quality, innovative strength, and of course, reliability. Even if the world around us is no longer reliable, we at Salzgitter certainly are. Because all 24,000 of us care. Because this company is so close to our hearts. I just mentioned that. That's why it works. Quality, innovation, reliability, one key factor is still missing, and that is safety. Allow me to briefly give you an overview of occupational safety at Salzgitter. And this is an important factor for us. It's a top priority. And I say that time and again, you know, I always have it on the agenda in every single meeting. The strategy that I showed to you last time is anchored at the highest point and is cascaded down to every single level, and it refers to everybody in the company. It is our top priority. The high safety standards are leadership responsibility. We view that as that. A stable process requires safe working conditions. Workplace and safety and performance, they are closely linked. That is why I never tire of showing this chart here at the AGM every year. But we still have quite a ways to go. We're not there yet. Our goal remains every single accident must be prevented. We will therefore remain committed to our zero accidents goal. If we look at the market environment now, I don't think I need to go into detail. We all see what is happening in the news every single day. The world is in a constant state of emergency. We wake up in the morning with new surprises. Political tensions are leading to economic crises with significant global repercussions. In Germany, in Europe, right here, US tariffs have become a double-edged sword and cheap imports from Asia a heavy burden. Europe is struggling to come up with convincing answers. The new reality is this. Powerful blocs, both old and new, are facing off against one another and fighting fiercely for political and economic influence. The dispute over the Strait of Hormuz is a current example of this. There's something happening in a part of the world far away from here, but it has repercussions right here. And I believe this constellation of powerful interest blocs is here to stay for some time. And Europe? Well, in the current constellation, Europe is largely on the sidelines. We're not really active players in this. We have to deal with all of this, whether we like it or not. Here in Germany, in particular, we're also seeing just how difficult and protracted transformation can be for a country in terms of energy policy, social policy, economic policy, and certainly security policy as well. The German Council of Economic Experts has just pointed this out. Reforms are so necessary. And as a steel company, we're right in the thick of all of these debates. We're heard and involved by policymakers, and for good reason, because we are part of the solution. We are the industrial backbone of Germany and Europe. We are the starting point for important and strategic value chains such as automotive, mechanical engineering, and of course defense sectors. If we do not want to become dependent on third parties, we will continue to produce steel right here in Germany. This applies not only, but especially to steel for the defense of our country and of Europe. Building this pillar is one of the things we focused on in 2025. Once again, we are part of the solution, and that is a good thing. However, we will still not be able to rely solely on politics. Instead, we must drive transformation on our own. Salzgitter is the best example of this. It is still the largest design project in the history of your company. 2025, we reached further important milestones. Let me mention a few. The tower of the direct reduction plant reached its final height of 140 meters in December. At the same time, construction of the electric arc furnace and is now a landmark for the city of Salzgitter. And like I said, the electric arc furnace and the electrolysis plant is progressing rapidly. The final installation phase of the plant equipment will now begin this summer. See for yourself. Why don't we take a look at this?
eindrucksvolle Bilder und gestatten Sie mir
These
auch.
are pretty impressive images, right? And again, I'd like to stop here and thank the entire team. This is the core project, and all of the colleagues who are dealing with Salzgitter and are looking into the future of green steel, the marketing of green steel. I think we have shown quite a good performance so far. Again, thank you very much to the entire team.
Was uns besonders gefreut hat,
And particularly encouraging, on February 6, 2026, the European Commission approved additional funding for Salzgitter in the amount of 322 million euros, of which we have already received 253. So in total, we have received 1.3 billion euros, and of that, 253 million have already been received in the first quarter. That was not only welcomed by our CFO, Birgit Potrawski, but it helped the entire company.
ich bin in den vergangenen Monaten immer wieder
Over the past few months, we have been asked time and again whether we are on the right track with Salzgitter, given the global situation. Some competitors have significantly scaled back their plans for us, and they actually returned funding that they had already received. But for us, one thing is clear, and let me point that out again. We will not let short-term uncertainties hold us back. The structural necessity of the transition to low-carbon production processes is there. The economic logic remains intact. Competitive advantages emerge early on. And ultimately, as you have seen, Salzgitter is within reach as an industrial project. We are on the right track. You saw the film. The phase one in this volatile environment is being implemented, and precisely because of that, we are on track. We are definitely on the right track. We do not in spite of the volatile environment, but precisely because of it. However, we're not acting dogmatically in the implementation and are taking advantage of the flexibility offered by Salzgitter's modularity from the very beginning. And we do that. And for the next phase of the transformation, we will actually have a bit more time due to the market environment and the situation that we currently have. But our aim is still very clear. We will stick to the objective. In the mid-30s, we will be there. A second thing that people ask me about is HKM. Again, we are pursuing the continued operation of Hüttenwerke Krupp-Mannesmann under the sole responsibility of Salzgitter AG. If we step back, look, the situation was as follows. The other two shareholders of HKM were ThyssenKrupp Steel Europe and the colleagues from Vallourec. But they wanted to withdraw from the joint venture. They don't need the quantities from HKM, and they wanted to get out. This meant either closing HKM or continue operations under a different structure in a new setup. Either of those solutions would have been costly, and we ultimately decided to continue operations under our sole responsibility. This is because we're getting value for our money. A transformed steelworks in the heart of Europe, connected by road, rail, and waterways. We would have paid a lot of money to shut it down. About 3,000 colleagues would have been entering social plans. That would have been much more costly. No ROI on that one. But now, as we continue production, we have the return on investment. We're maintaining the integrated value chain from the liquid phase through raw materials to marketing, securing raw materials for defense products and other applications. Leveraging synergies for decarbonization, for strengthening the European slab market, all of which contribute to resilience. So, We have, like I said, leveraging synergies for decarbonization, and we are actually helping the European slab market because it's the only slab works that can actually sell into the free market. All other works have other companies where they already work with the slabs themselves. And how do we finance that? Well, it's financed through transaction proceeds because the two partners who left the company are paying a negative sales price, public subsidies, of course. We already have the permission to obtain these subsidies, and of course, some of it is from our own funds. It is important for me to point out that we are acquiring HKM based on economic and industrial logic. In doing so, we're also assuming social responsibility, but we can only do this because the combined business model will pay off. This requires an ambitious restructuring of HKM based on a detailed implementation plan, at the end of which HKM's capacity will be reduced. We did this in very constructive talks with the IG Metall and the Works Council. We will preserve around 1,000 jobs. The alternative would have been to shut down the plant. That only highlights again the responsibilities that we're taking on. Like I just said, we can freely market slabs, and that's important if you consider that the European slab market is going to change. Today, we have still major imports from slabs from Russia, but this will be reduced bit by bit until September of 28, and then it's going to be zero. In other words, the slabs that we receive from Russia must be substituted, and I think HKM may play a major role here. Where are we here in this process? Well, we're talking to Valorec, ThyssenKrupp Steel, and I'm sure we will soon have a great result, and then together we will be on the road to recovery. But also leading the way in other areas. Let me give you 3 examples. Okay, defense is clear. You saw that in the film. Salzgitter AG Defense brings together all of Salzgitter AG's activities for the defense industry under one roof. With the entire range of our products. Our products meet the highest quality standards and offer reliable protection. The Salzgitter Group is currently one of the few German suppliers with TL certification. TL means technical delivery conditions for use by the German armed forces. That's the highest, or one of the highest, certification categories. Other countries also use it, so once we have achieved that, we are able to also do some good business with other countries. Initiative construction. This is a group-wide network of Salzgitter AG. Through it, customers receive not only high-quality steel products, but also a comprehensive service package. We efficiently and consistently integrate all processes related to construction, and the network stands for decades of experience and deep industry expertise for demanding construction projects. We deliver steel, slabs, what have you, all the way down to the final stage of construction. And again, in one voice, we can speak to the client. Last example, Plasmax technology. KHS has introduced this technology for PET bottles. With this barrier technology, we protect particularly sensitive beverages in the bottle significantly better than the competition. The competition doesn't even have a similar product. And coming back to circularity, this bottle is completely recyclable, and we keep it. And the fact that we're investing a sum in the tens of millions in our Hamburg site on a new facility to ensure we can efficiently process all these orders. And at the end of the day, this will lead to more investments in Germany. 2 weeks ago, we broke ground in Hamburg. A new hall is going to be built, and again, that we will have ready for our clients, and the dynamics of the market can be used for our future projects. Just for this product, we're investing a 2-digit amount in Hamburg. Again, that's a clear signal that we believe in what we're doing. So you see, we care, we take care, because we identify tomorrow's markets today and play a role in them. Innovation is one thing, consistent cost management is another, and we take care of that as well. With our profit improvement program, comprehensive restructuring measures, and active portfolio management, we ensure that our transformation is implemented in a financially sustainable manner. Regarding P28, established and successful in a very short time, we have raised our ambition level once again to a sustainable cost reduction effect of 575 million. Ms. Bose mentioned that. So we're looking at 575 million euros in our cost reduction. At the same time, we are reviewing administrative functions across the entire group. That's the next logical step. That will be on top. With the turnaround of the retail division now complete, we recorded our first restructuring successes in 2025, reflected in the 2025 annual results. At the same time, portfolio optimizations were carried out according to the best owner principle. We're talking the sale of Desma Schuhmaschinen GmbH, but the numbers show that we've done the right thing, and we've shown a clear direction of what we want to do. The same goes for MPT, the Management Position Group. Again, we did restructuring there. The company in Helmond was closed. That was then given to the ones in the German and the French plants, and also in Mexico, because of the situation and the tariff situation has been reduced to about half of it. So you see, apart from our continuous improvement there, we look at points where we can restructure elements and where it's necessary. And we actually deal with that very clearly. Portfolio optimization, you heard me talk about it time and again. Yes, of course, we want to focus it on our strategy. Like I said, the shoe machine company, Desma, we weren't able to contribute too much, and the buyer is a client of Desma, so they can strategically develop. But for us, it meant that in 2026, we bought a company in Dessau, a steel processing plant. So there with Universal Stahl, we can therefore widen our portfolio in that field. And Thüroff and Uhle will be integrated into our portfolio. As you see, our portfolio is changing, and the strategy, of course, is always in the right direction. Yeah, and financial flexibility is part of being resilient. You saw that in the press. We placed in a convertible bond in Arubis AG shares with a volume of 500 million euros. And we have specifically expanded the Salzgitter Group's financial flexibility. We managed to get the financial flexibility in the company and are taking advantage of that in the times to come. And now it's going to get a little bit more technical, but we, of course, see a new rating of this bond every month, and that leads to a certain fluctuation. Those of you who have been with Salzgitter for a long time know that. But the central steering key figures that we have, that comes straight from the bond. These are things that we cannot influence, but we try to eliminate them. So when you see VX at the end of it, those are the ones where we have already consolidated and we have taken out the volatility of this particular bond. I will come back to that in a minute when we get to the key figures of the year. Dear shareholders, it has been a challenging year. We all know that. The situation in the economy, were everything but good. And not only for the first time, but 3 years on now. We still managed, despite of the high prices and the economic environment, the unfair competition internationally, we managed to bring our group back into the black, despite persistently weak demand, high prices, and intense, and in some cases, very, very unfair international competition. You see that here. It's because we had very healthy profits and also the consolidation of the stainless steel tube group. The EBITDA VX, so that's consolidated already, was just below the EBITDA for the fiscal year 24, also due to lower sales and the deconsolidation of the stainless steel tube group. And the pre-tax profit VX, however, rose to a slightly positive 2 million compared to the prior year figure, which was marked by negative one-time effects. But, end of story, we're back in the black, break even, and better than break even. So, that is what we managed in 2025 because we took care of business. And the earnings per share have also improved. That, of course, is a question of doing the math. So, to finish this off, how 2025 has been a difficult year, a tough year, but a successful one too. Now, if you look at the first quarter of 2026, well, the beginning was good. We got off to a good start. We were able to continue the positive trend that we had at the end of 25 and led it straight into the first quarter of 26. But sales remained stable at 2.3 billion euros compared to the first quarter of 25, meaning the 280 million in EBITDA is not driven by business expansion, but rather by the Eurobus investment and the margin improvements in the operating business, and thanks, of course, to the P28 program that I just explained. Especially thanks, like I said, to the P28 program. So here you see it, black on white, that our efforts to improve performance have been fruitful. And if we look on from the first quarter towards the end of the year, I again talk about the economic conditions. The Iran war is something that we notice every bit of the way. It is having a severe impact, and hopes for a robust recovery have been dampened for the time being. This is one reason why the forecasts are low. The uncertain market environment with weak demand thus persists. The forecast for steel demand in 2026 has been significantly revised downward. In some cases, we are seeing a shift to subsequent years. Additional demand from Germany's Special Fund for Defense and Infrastructure is not yet visible. The projects are there, they're in the market, but it's a lot slower than what we expected, and it's tougher to get into the tender, and therefore it's not yet visible in the order books. But again, the competitors are in exactly the same situation, so the train hasn't left the station yet. On the other hand, we see a little bit of positive momentum too. So for 2027, we're actually looking at 2027 in some of these projects. But again, there's one positive aspect. We have seen regulatory impulses. We fought hard for the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, meaning steel being introduced to the European Union. So that led up to a price increase, and which is even more important, we now have another instrument of trade protection. The Parliament then decided that on the 1st of July, in 4 weeks' time, that will kick in and means that there will no more free import into steel, from steel into Europe. It will be reduced to about 50% of that, and everything beyond that is going to be taxed, just as with the tariffs that we have with the American friends. So steel that is actually meant for export to the US but could not be imported is then being shifted to Europe. Well, that shifting is going to be stopped with this new legislation, which will come into force on the 1st of July. And you see that in the way the pricing is done for steel. So regulatory effects will finally be noticed. And we fought hard for these changes. And it makes me feel positive that on the competitive side, we are now faring better than before. In the overall situation, this has led to raise our forecast despite the very encouraging start for the new fiscal year. However, in light of the challenges ahead, we will remain cautiously optimistic, and we therefore currently expect the Salzgitter Group to generate sales of about 9.5 billion euros. EBITDA VX will be 625 and between 625 and 725, and the EBIT between 200 and 300 million. That is ambitious, and it is a clear increase. Shows, when we looked back in 25, we looked at a negative one, and now we're looking at a positive development. That shows that we are very consistent in what we're doing.
Positiv hat sich auch der Aktienkurs entwickelt.
Share price has gone through a positive development. We saw that back in 2010. So the DAX continued its upward trend in 2025. And, well, we have the right performance and we stabilized that trend. And as difficult as the economic situation in Germany was in 25, that was hardly reflected on the stock market. If you look at the DAX, like I said, the upward trend in 25 continued, and we're now at the 24,000 point mark for the first time in May. But again, it was driven in particular by the strong international positioning of many index companies whose value creation takes place largely outside of Germany. We benefited in 2025 from prospects for the Special Fund for the Infrastructure process, higher defense spending, and of course, the rising price of the Eurobis share. We saw it last year. It continued into the new year. So just like everybody else, with the beginning of the Iran war, there was, of course, downturn, but now we're looking at the highest stock price since 2010. But if you look at everything together,
26 hat unsere Vorstand und Aufsichtsrat gemeinsam
we decided to
die Aktie zu entscheiden für das
go
Geschäftsjahr.
for 20 cents per share based on the results for 25-26, and if you look at the business performance in the current year, it seems to be the right thing. Therefore, a distribution of 20 cents per share for the fiscal year based on the 2025 earnings shall be correct. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, if you take care, if you care about something, it's close to your heart. You commit yourself to it with care and courage, and then it turns out well. And in 25, that's exactly what we've done. We stayed the course, we strengthened our resilience and laid the foundation for a bright future. Our progress is impressive. Are we done? Not by a long shot. Caring, but we will never be finished. There will always be new ambitious goals. But caring is an ongoing task, and that is why I promise we will stay the course and we will face the challenges head on by saving, by investing, by driving innovation, by continuing on the path of transformation that we have chosen with focus and commitment. Dear shareholders, thank you very much for your trust in our work. The fact that you, as shareholders, have remained loyal to us, often for many years, is not something to be taken for granted. To me, this means that you are entrusting us with the company, along with a mandate to guide it through difficult times as best we can, so that it continues to grow and thrive. And I assure you that I will continue to devote my full energy to this task. Thank you very much for your attention and best wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Groebler, for your detailed report and for your detailed explanations of the current situation and for the company. Thank you all those watching on the screens and via the web, the public live.